This podcast was brought to you by Pachinko Machines. No, wait, please, come back. I was only joking. We're still doing podcasts, I swear. Hello, and welcome to Monkey Broadcast, a monthly review and discussion show with me, the Jonin Monkey.
And me, Sven the Crusader.
And so, here we are in March, and we continue to march on. I don't know,
That was terrible.
I'm sorry, it's hard to come up with an introduction feed by month, especially when March has barely anything going on in it. The only thing that's vaguely interesting is that Easter's ridiculously early this year.
Fair enough. To be fair, that has been the way I've mostly lived my life. When all else fails, resort to puns.
Yeah, although I don't think it was really a pun. But anyway, let's not think about it too much. Point is, we've started a podcast, and we are now going to start with our first section.
Q&A!
This is the section where we answer questions from the audience. If you'd like us to answer your questions, either leave them in the comments or send them to me via Twitter with the hashtag MBQuestion.
Our first question comes from Vice.
Have you seen Dragon Ball Z Revival of F? If so, your thoughts.
Howdy, everyone. Welcome to Jonin Town.
Yeah, sorry about this. I'll try and make it quick. For those who don't know, Revival of F is the latest Dragon Ball Z movie, following on from the success of Battle of the Gods, which revived the series, and honestly, this question was sent to us about a year and a half ago, but I waited until I've actually seen this movie.
Fair policy.
A short summary. It started off pretty good, but the more it went on, the less I liked it.
Isn't that always the case with shonen?
Admittedly, yes. Basically, the whole movie is based around the revival of Frieza, one of Dragon Ball Z's most memorable villains, and many would argue the villain that represented the peak of Dragon Ball. And it kind of starts off fatally amusing, the idea that it starts off with Frieza's minions bringing him back to life, and there's some amusing banter that goes on between the minions and Shenron, the wish-granting dragon, because the minions, they start off by going, "We wish you to revive Lord Frieza." What, didn't you hear me?
Yes, I heard you, but he was sliced into little bits. I can bring him back to life, but he will essentially be a pile of meat. Are you absolutely sure you want to do this?
I can revive him, but he will be beef stew.
Yeah, but thankfully, or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, the villains have a DNA reviving machine thing, so they use that to bring him back to life, and Frieza decides to train for 6 months so that he becomes even stronger and can now threaten the Earth. And yeah, unfortunately from there, the film kind of spirals, because it initially starts off with the supporting cast defending the Earth because Sod's Law, Goku and Vegeta are away when this happens. At first I had a load of good feelings towards it because, oh hey, Krillin and Tien get involved. I actually really like those characters, and I always thought one of the biggest shames of Dragon Ball was that the humans ended up being completely useless and could only just stand there going, "Oh wow, these guys are moving fast. What the heck is going to happen now?"
Or somehow surviving in the case of Hercule.
Pretty much, yeah.
By the way, one of the only human characters in Dragon Ball Z I know by name. But enough of me being decades behind schedule, carry on.
Yeah, but unfortunately, the sequence starts to fall apart when you think, wait a minute, why are these guys here? Because admittedly they do address it at the start, but not very well. Like, Krillin is a good example of this. I really like him, and one of the plus points I will give to this movie is you find out that in between movies, Krillin has taken up the job of a police officer, and as you can imagine, a cop with Dragon Ball Z-like abilities is an awesome sight to behold. But there's this bit where he's suiting up in order to take on Frieza, and his wife, a cyborg named 18, it makes sense if you watch the series-ish, his wife 18 says to him, "Are you sure you want to do this? I mean, don't take this the wrong way, but I am stronger than you. I mean, I can fight Super Saiyan, so probably going to stand more of a chance against the army than you do." But no, it's just, for some weird reason, because Krillin's the more recognizable and therefore more marketable one, he goes out to fight the minions along with Master Roshi, and they also leave behind Goten and Trunks, which I kind of get because, okay, they're children, you want to keep them out of the fight, but on the other hand, they are literally Super Saiyans and much stronger than Tien, Krillin, and Master Roshi combined, so why are they...
Wow! I will henceforth dub thee the Oh God My Spleen army.
Pretty much, yes. And then we get into the big final fight, and it's a massive letdown for two reasons. Liffy McDuck sent us a question sometime last year about whether or not I felt Revival of F would restore Frieza's dignity. At the time, I said that the problem is you've revived him, but you've locked him into this pattern of wanting to prove his superiority to the Saiyans, but failing. In this case, it's even worse, because no one takes the fight seriously. At all. Like, the initial Frieza fight was, oh god, this guy is murdering us, we're gonna have to give everything we have and beyond in order to not die. This, the closest you get with Goku is going, oh wow, your power level's gone up. I think I can feel my heart racing a little bit. And that's it, that's the closest you get to tension. In the meantime, Goku and Vegeta bicker about whose turn it is to take on Frieza, and you cut away to the supporting cast making these goofy jokes about Sundays in the background. It's just like, hello? Battle for the sake of the earth going on here?
Ladies, gentlemen, and other viewers, this is what we like to call fan service.
Pretty much, yeah. It's just, no one's taking it seriously, and Frieza ends up being more and more pathetic because it's very clear from the outset that he's outmatched. And after like a few cursory blows, he can't do anything against the two Saiyans. And he only becomes a source of tension right at the very end when he suddenly remembers, oh yeah, I can blow up planets without even trying.
One would think he would have remembered that sooner.
Yeah, apparently not. And the second thing is the other big selling point of this film, Goku's new form, which is unfortunately officially known as Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan.
Any more Super Saiyan gods than that and you could create a remix.
Pretty much, yeah. And the biggest problem with this form, apart from the laziness of design, that being it's Super Saiyan with blue hair, but...
and lost against Superman again.
Yeah. Actually, that leads into part of the problem. The problem with this form is that it comes right the heck out of nowhere and with absolutely no fanfare whatsoever. Like, okay, there have been forms like Super Saiyan 3 which have, in hindsight, have been pulled out of their ass. Like, the Super Saiyan 3, Goku just casually thinks, oh yeah, I just somehow learned about it whilst I was dead. But,
wow.
But, here's the thing, even with all of that, the introduction of Super Saiyan 3 was still one of the most awesome moments in this series, because you get these big moments where Goku goes, okay, this is Super Saiyan 1, this is Super Saiyan 2, and this is what happens when you go even further. And he lets out this massive primal scream, and you can see his body twist, and there's like weird bits of symbolic imagery, but all of it is to imply that Goku is reaching even deeper into his powers than anyone could have possibly imagined. Here, Goku goes, well, if you want to see my full power, here you go. And then we just get this sound, and his hair's now blue. And he just goes, oh yeah, I should explain. I once acquired a form known as Super Saiyan God, and now I know how to activate it on my own. That's it. That's all of the build-up, all of the majesty, all of the animation potential you have in this high-budget film, and it's basically, snap, okay, this is my new form.
I'm gonna quote an original VGT here and say, wow, I'm f***ing speechless.
Yeah. It's the song uninspired. Oh, and spoilers, if you haven't seen this movie, it's been out for a year, Vegeta now knows it too, just because it's Vegeta.
Again, fan service.
Yeah, it all comes out of nowhere, and
actually, now that I think of it, this is more or less the Dragon Ball equivalent of how they brought back Darth Maul in Star Wars The Clone Wars.
Yeah, pretty much. It's just, oh, here you go, here's a super form. There is no pomp or ceremony or build-up, it's just, bam, new form. And this is the second reason why it's such a great big disappointment. First off, visually, it doesn't look all that impressive. Like I mentioned in my review of Battle of the Gods, there's nothing all that distinct in the fight that made this new form feel any special. The same thing applies here, except for one plot point. And it's funny you mentioned the Goku vs. Superman death battle. At an earlier point of the film, Frieza mentions to one of his minions, everything should be fine, but just in case, prepare the contingency plan. And I thought, oh, okay, that shows he's being smart. He's got something in the wings in case things turn south. It turns out, it's one of the laziest martial arts tropes you could possibly think of, and it's something that does a great big disservice to the form. See, Goku has Frieza on his knees going, yep, I told you, you can no longer defeat me. And then he gets shot in the back by a laser gun.
What?
Yeah.
No, really, in the words of Cinema Sense, what?
Yeah, it's basically he gets shot by a ray gun out of nowhere. He just instantly goes out the form, collapses, going. It's not even like a special customized gun designed to destroy Saiyan DNA from inside out or whatever. It's no special countermeasure. In fact, Frieza specifically says the Great Super Saiyan felled by a common ray gun. Common ray gun. Common. So you have seriously suggested that all of these characters, who, by the way, in the earlier parts of the series, weren't harmed by bullets, can just be killed by common laser guns even when they've ascended god form? Are you f***ing kidding me?
Okay, first of all, I forgive you, Superman. Second of all, note to self. In case of Super Saiyans, call XCOM.
Yeah, that's actually the saddest thing. It's now been given credence that as long as you sneak up behind them, they can probably do that.
That's just sad. Speaking as someone who has not watched an episode of DBZ, I expected more dignity.
Yeah, and that is the brand new super form, folks. That's what they were building up to for most of the movie, and it is pretty sad when the ultimate pinnacle of Super Saiyan godhood looks less impressive than Super Saiyan 3, a form which, I should mention, hasn't helped the heroes win a single bloody battle.
Funnily enough, including Superman.
Indeed, and that is somehow more impressive than the Super Saiyan God form. So
that's just sad. That is legitimately sad.
Yeah, and now that I've watched this film, I have to shake my head at people who would say that Goku would defeat Superman because, yeah, Superman has his weaknesses, but I'm pretty sure he can stand up to f***ing laser guns.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he would laugh in the face of laser guns, and I'm pretty sure he has. But, you know, I may or may not have hinted at the fact that I'm not a fan of Superman. May have just hinted at it. But I'm fully willing to give him all credit against this joke.
Yeah, so...
And that's just sad.
Yeah, so, long story short, I am not a fan of Revival of F. I mean, the one or two good moments it has, like, Beerus and Whis are still awesome characters in their own right. The voice acting from Funimation is the best it's ever been, but even with all of that, it is just... it is such an awful mess, and it's honestly making me less excited about Dragon Ball Z movies in the future. So.
You know it's bad whenever it not only kills Goku's dignity, but it kills the fan base's excitement.
Well, mine specifically, I don't know. I know there are some people who think it's awesome, but... and if you are, more power to you, but yeah, I just didn't care for it.
If you liked it, have fun.
Yeah, pretty much. And I spent way too much time talking about this, so... Time to talk about something that the both of us can get involved in. This question comes from Roy Havenstone, and he says...
What are your thoughts on Chris Chibnall taking over as lead writer for Doctor Who?
First, I'd like to reuse my old reaction to Aizen's defeat.
It's over, it's over, it's
over! To tell you the honest truth, no matter what you think of Moffat, under his, steady hand, I guess, Doctor Who has seen the lowest ratings it's had since it was a cheesy show in the 80s.
Yeah.
So this was kinda necessary, and the fact that he's being replaced by one of Davis's writers and producers appeals to me because I far preferred his era.
Yeah, that's enough. I mean, Moffat's run has some good episodes, but I will freely admit that the show needed a break, because especially in the last season, some of you may have seen my Twitter reviews, which, if you haven't, why didn't you? But anyway,
Jonin has a Twitter, by the way. Go follow.
Thank you. But yes, it was becoming very obvious that Moffat was a one-trick pony, because a lot of the last season was, in Moffat's episodes, was reusing old ideas and not doing it very well. So yeah, we really needed a shake-up for this point. Now, as for Chris in particular, I wish I could remember any of his episodes.
To be fair, he worked mostly on Torchwood.
Yeah, I mean, Roy, he was one of the people who posted these questions on Twitter, which, by the way, I have, go follow, and,
Have we mentioned he has a Twitter?
Yes, and,
Give us attention!
He also gave us this helpful image, which is basically all of his previous writing credits, and I've got to be honest, just staring at this, the only ones I remember are The Hungry Earth and The Cold Blood, which were okay, I guess.
Funnily enough, those are two of the only episodes from Series 5 that I remember.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I remember the finale of Season 5, but yeah, the rest, I can't remember anything about, like, Power 3, which one was that? I honestly...
Yeah, well, to be fair, I only watched Series 5 the whole way through. And then kinda gave up after that point, because I saw the reviews and I was like, no, better ways to spend my time.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I haven't seen much of Torchwood except for the Cyberwoman episode, which I'm hoping was just an executive decision, because that episode was really not that great.
Yeah, here is dearly hoping. Also, I'm looking at this lineup, and I noticed that he worked on Law & Order. Cue full body cringe. No offense to Law & Order fans, but, Law & Order.
Well, in fairness, it's a UK version, so maybe it's better?
I wouldn't be surprised, because here in the United States, we have like 15 versions of it.
Oh.
There was a time whenever it dominated every single network at every single hour of the day, and suffice it to say, that's kind of ruined my goodwill.
Oh dear. So, yeah, that's the long and short of it. We're glad a new writer is taking the reins, but we don't know anything about this guy, so we're just going to have to cross our fingers and hope for the best.
And I will end this off by saying I am deeply sad by the almost inevitability of Peter Capaldi's departure.
Well,
because he has been the only saving grace of Moffat's writing.
Yeah, well, that and Matt Smith. Well, actually, the sad thing is, there was a guy that missed TARDIS reviews, and he summed up the sadness. Everything about Doctor Who, from the acting to the music to the effects, they've all gone above and beyond to make each episode look, sound, and act, I guess, very incredibly awesome. It's just that the stories have not been that great.
That's really the sad thing, because if we're being honest here, Matt Smith and Peter Capaldi have both completely gotten the shaft. I mean, not as much as Hayden Christensen got the shaft, but they still haven't exactly had good writing to put their skills to use.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, they've been amazing actors. It's just they really deserved better stories, honestly.
Yeah, and for that alone, whoever replaces Peter Capaldi, may you have better luck.
Indeed. Although I guess there's always a big finish for that kind of situations.
That's true. And I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that uber nerd Peter Capaldi will jump on the first chance he gets at that series.
Oh, yes, definitely.
He was a nerd before we were even nerdy twinkles in our parents' eyes. Our next question from Infernity Zero reads,
If you're looking forward to Fire Emblem Fates, what are your thoughts on all the controversy surrounding the game, in particular My Castle / the skin ship debacle?
oh dear God, here we go. I'm just gonna sum up my thoughts very quickly, hopefully without pissing off any particular section of the fandom, because I'm still trying to write the peace agreement between me and the One Piece fandom. My thoughts are this. Skin Ship was skin-crawlingly creepy, and the game, which I have played, yay, is better off without it.
Indeed. Unfortunately, at the time of recording, I'm still waiting for Nintendo to announce a European release date, which, in my personal opinion, is by far the bigger controversy, which no one seems to be talking about, especially when apparently the American sales numbers have been the highest the series has ever seen. No, I'm not bitter. Why do you think I'm bitter?
Guys, you might be bitter.
A European release date was announced a few weeks after the recording, so I'm happy now. But, yeah, there is a lot of controversy surrounding it. On the one hand, there's the whole, how far do you go to censorship? I mean, yeah, the skin ship thing was a really stupid idea, but does that mean we should remove all the content? And there's also a confusion about whether or not some of the special S-rank support conversations were connected to the skin shipping game or not. And there's also, people will say that apparently Nintendo made it so that you can only touch and feel people when you have S-ranks, i.e. when you're married, and some people have said that this is pushing the Western Christian agenda, and these are more complicated issues. However, there is also one factor that we need to include. I don't care. I really, really don't.
Honestly, I get that. I mean, that whole mini-game, personally, like I said, made my skin crawl, so it probably would have taken away from the supports for me, but I can honestly see the viewpoint of someone who just didn't give a shit.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna try and keep this man short, because I know it's a divisive topic for some people, but no one cared about stuff like this back in the day. I mean, yeah, we would compare the versions after the release, and occasionally we'd go, well, that was silly, why did they change that? But there was never this whole fury and outcry over this kind of thing. And I know why it's happened. It's because news websites need something to draw views in, so they go, oh my god, Western release of JRPG has this altered, and this allows people to yell out their own personal agendas on localization and censorship and blah blah blah. So, yeah, I understand why these things are happening, but I find it just so annoying, because this kind of stuff happened all the time, and no one ultimately cared, because did anyone care when all of the cigarettes were removed from Skies of Arcadia? Did anyone care that the dialogue was altered in Radiant Dawn? They removed a substantial amount of text from the hard mode, and like I said in my VGT review of Radiant Dawn, for the better.
And while we're on the topic of Skies of Arcadia, did anyone care when they had pirates getting tipsy off of fruit juice?
Yeah, I mean, things like that. Okay, yeah, it's silly. We can all laugh about how, oh, that was a really odd decision, but ultimately, that was like a minor pinpoint, because ultimately, the story and the gameplay, the things that actually mattered, were intact and were enjoyable, and that's the thing. Stuff like this happens all the time in localization for one reason or another. I mean,
honestly, this whole thing just comes down to cultural differences and audience differences that were there from the beginning, but no one cared until the news sites needed something to talk about.
Yeah.
Reminds me a lot of certain presidential elections.
Pretty much. I mean, obviously some people care about it, but not to the extreme point where it's leveled as a controversy. Like, that's the thing that's really got on me. I don't mind if you're annoyed at this or think it was a silly change. I honestly get that. There have been times when I felt like that, but it's like I said, I'm trying to build it up as a controversy. Like, it happened also in Xenoblade Chronicles X, where they go, oh, the 13-year-old, her swimsuit was changed. Yeah, but every single character that was above the age of 16, all of their skimpy outfits are available, and let me tell you, those outfits can get real bloody skimpy. And in fact, to give you an idea of how unchanged a lot of the content was, there was a situation where you can have your character freely admit that they prefer, and I quote, going commando.
You know, I remember a time in gaming where a quote like that would have put the game on the cutting board in Australia.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the thing. We're at a golden age of localization. Like, yeah, you still get the lazy efforts every now and then, but you have all these people putting efforts into the acting, trying their best to make the dialogue true to the spirit as possible, while still being entertaining to an English audience, and yet we're throwing a furore over minor changes that don't affect the main game overall. Like, if you want me to really care about a localization, if you want me to be up in furore, it would have to be something that actually affects the main story, like in Godzilla 1985, when they basically changed a lot of the characters in order to fit with the American political agenda at the time, which is Russians are evil even though they have a very minor role, that they're somehow responsible for Godzilla.
Cold War. That was crazy.
Yeah, it's stuff like that. Or in 4Kids, when you basically butcher an entire story to remove all tension, make it PG-friendly, and cut out entire story arcs to get to the marketable parts, that's when I will get angry at a localization and be up in furore. Hell, the thing that actually made me the most irritated at localization was, I really wish I could remember his name, but there was one member of Nintendo of America's localization team who freely admitted sometimes we just can't be bothered to hire professional voice actors, so we get people from The Office to do it, and we find it a lot of fun. That got irritated to me, because that's a sign that they were not taking their job seriously, and just treated it like, oh yes, it's so much fun to do the voices. Granted, our voices sound terrible, but...
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna use the One Piece example, because even though I'm not a fan, as I may have hinted at some points, For Kids, what they did to that series was just inexcusable. And to say that this is a localization blunder on the level of 4Kids is an exaggeration about as subtle as a punch in the face. I mean, we're talking about a localization that made the game, God forbid, just a little less fan-servicey, and grown men are crying in the streets over it.
Like I said, here's the thing. Unless it is actually a part of the main story or a part of the main gameplay, I don't care. I am done paying attention to stories like this. Until you can tell me that something has actually affected the main spirit of the work, I don't care. Because this kind of stuff happens in localization, and more often than not, the games end up better for it. Yes, there are times when they screw up, but we have to deal with those on a case-by-case context. This is not something you can just yell censorship for or resolve everything, you know?
Yeah, that's pretty much just the sum of it. I mean, I've played Fire Emblem Fates, and comparing some of the dialogue to some of the dialogue that I saw translated directly from Japanese, it's like you said, a lot of it is for the better.
Indeed.
On that note...
Yes, on that note, let's move on to something else from Infinity Zero that's more fun and frivolous.
I'm in the middle of writing a fan death battle to go on DeviantArt. The combatants are the Radiant hero Ike and the King of Evil Ganondorf. Who do you think would win and why?
First of all, IZ, let me just say... yeah. let me give some context to that statement by saying that I have also started writing fan death battles. Please stop me before I start rambling about Sosuke Aizen versus Griffith from Berserk.
Indeed. Although it is actually funny because you showed me some of the death battles you were planning to write, and one of them was Ike versus Lloyd from Tales of Symphonia, so...
I still haven't figured out who wins that.
Yeah, so I was thinking you've probably done a bit more research on Ike in recent memories.
Well, the thing is, it's hard to do research on Ike whenever his cutscene appearances are limited. Stats are basically inapplicable in a death battle. And all I really have to go on is Super Smash Bros.
That is true. My two cents would be, it should be a pretty close one, but it's all going to come down to one thing. Now, when Ganondorf has the Triforce of Power, an item created by the gods of the Legend of Zelda universe, the only thing that can harm him is the Master Sword, which has, and I quote, the Blade of Evil's Bane. The question I pose is, Ike's sword Ragnar is blessed by the goddesses of his world. So, does that count as an Evil's Bane?
And that's my big point of contention whenever we're talking about this. Because the goddesses in Tellius kind of operate on a different morality scale, in that Ashura and Yune are lawful versus chaotic. Whereas, I guess deities in the Zelda universe basically just operate on the Greek scale of pure versus completely fucked up.
You would think so, but the thing is, they still keep giving Ganondorf the Triforce of Power, so who knows?
That's true. Maybe they're a bit more Greek than I thought.
I mean, you could go about it either way. On the one hand, you could say that, yeah, because he... Well, actually, no, thinking about it, I was going to point out that since Yune is a chaotic goddess, it probably wouldn't do that much, but then I remember, no, Ragnar was originally blessed by the lawful goddess first.
So it has blessings of both goddesses. It's just a matter of, determining what constitutes evil in that context? Honestly, we only really see Ragnar being super effective against the Black Knight, or Ashura, which really doesn't apply because, yeah, those blessings are just insular to that universe.
Yeah, I suppose it's whether you consider the Triforce of Power to be a blessing of the gods in certain, in which case I guess it would come down to which god is more powerful, I guess.
Oh god, I'm reminded of a George Carlin joke, and I stopped watching him years ago. My god has a bigger dick than your god!
And a kind of an awkward joke, considering both goddesses are, well, female. And even more awkward when you kept misgendering them before that joke passed me.
Yeah, very quickly moving on from that. In the words of a political game I play, deflect, deflect, deflect.
So yes, I guess that's what it would all come down to, how you would read those facts, because I have a sneaking suspicion that if it does come down in Ike's favour, he would win, mainly because if we were going to use Fire Emblem magic, Sword User versus Dark Mage, he's got this in the bag.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, Ganondorf is a more physical spellcaster, but he's still a spellcaster in the end. Also, I would point out that Ike has killed a god.
Indeed.
Which has kind of been the wrench thrown into my plans for Ike versus Lloyd, because, well, Ike has killed a god, and Lloyd has killed basically the only thing as good as.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it also depends on whether or not the X-Sphere gave him more endurance, but, oh god, maybe we could talk about that.
Yeah, again, don't get us going, because I'll just end up rambling about, God help me, Ryu versus Mario. Look forward to that on DeviantArt one day, people.
Yes, and one day I'll link you to it on Twitter, which, by the way, you should totally see.
He has a Twitter, by the way. Go follow him.
Yeah, let's move on to the next question.
Our next question comes from Luffy McDuck, who asks, What would be the most ridiculous crossover game you could think of? Here's an example. Mario Kart and Yu-Gi-Oh! It's card games on go-karts. Nice. Nice, McDuck.
Oh dear. Well, I want to get two lazy answers out the way. One would be Project Cross Zone, because I love that series just because of how insane that crossover can get at times. And the other one would be what I've been trying to present for years, would be Tales of Donkey Kong Country.
It's funny you should mention Donkey Kong, because I've got one better. Remember, Jonin, when we almost wrote Donkey Kong Mass Effect?
Oh, yeah!
That almost happened, viewers. We almost crossed over Mass Effect and Donkey Kong.
Oh, yeah, because we had that conversation during the talk through it in a way.
We did. I like to call it Donkey Kong Faster Than Light. Or Donkey Kong Reaper Beat.
Oh, jeez. I'm trying to think of the best crossovers. I mean, part of me wants to do a bizarre Pokemon crossover, but considering they've had Pokemon Conquest and Pokemon Detective games, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, Intelligent Systems have now canonically done a crossover of Fire Emblem and Game of Thrones. So, I can't really suggest that one.
I would say My Little Pony and Phoenix Wright, but that's also been done, so...
And it was awesome.
Yeah.
Somehow. I will add this, though, just following on from our last question. Ryu versus Mario.
Indeed, yes.
Then again, that has also happened because Smash Bros.
Yeah. Oh, also following on from that, you can have Tekken X Pokemon, so...
Oh god. Don't give them any ideas, they'll probably do it.
Well, technically, the makers of Tekken were the ones behind Pokemon Tournament, or Pokken Tournament as we're calling it, so...
Oh god, that's true. That might actually happen. So, I think long story short is this. Donkey Kong Faster Than Light. Make it happen.
Indeed. That or Tales of Donkey Kong Country, I think I'd probably die of a happy heart attack if that happened, but...
Me too, actually. God, can you imagine the battle system? Okay, let's stop ourselves before we make an entire game concept.
Indeed. The sad thing is I have been tempted in the past to make a fan animation out of that, but anyway.
In which that one boss theme, the Wilderness of Sadness, is given a whole new meaning.
And it's funny, I hadn't planned this, but this question actually flows into the next. The first question is from 2Junkie, and he asks...
You are fighting Sven in a turn-based JRPG. Which turn-based battle system will you use?
I just opened my mouth twice to answer and closed it because I'm actually giving this honest-to-God thought. First answer that comes to mind is Final Fantasy IX.
That was pretty flashy, I'll grant you.
But I'm also tempted to just go old school, go strategy RPG and say Fire Emblem. Because then we can work out stats and figure out how screwed one of us is.
Reminds me of the days where we used to do Fire Emblem roleplays.
Funnily enough, I was just recently thinking of those. God, those were terrible, but they were fun days.
Yeah, I mean, we had to all start somewhere. I'm actually tempted to go with Skies of Arcadia, but purely because I am such a sucker for calling out attacks, and that battle system is based around it, let's be honest.
If we're going Skies of Arcadia, I want a Copper Claw hand.
Will you be chasing after whales as well, or...?
Well, I have always wanted to live out the lyrics of the Gojira song Flying Whales, so why not?
In my case, it would either be like an impressive sort of tank, or go on, dance for me.
Yeah, always and forever, the coolest.
Yep.
Let's be honest.
Indeed. And on that positive note, that ends this month's Q&A. Once again, thank you for sending the questions, and please keep them coming. They always produce awesome sections.
Yeah. Oh, we finally got to talk about fan death battles. I'm pleased.
Indeed. Which leads us into our next section.
Reviews!
Have fun, Jonin, because my only review is so full of spoilers it would make the internet bleed out of its ears.
Well, maybe not the internet, but certainly me.
The more scrupulous parts of the internet, all 5% of it.
As much as I love hearing you review things, I don't think anyone wants to hear a podcast review where I'm sitting in the corner going, la 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 la, not listening, not listening, not listening.
Just close your eyes, cover your ears, and hum the Batman theme. Da 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 da.
It'd even be that on Life Returns, but anyway. Yeah, because Sven's only review is kind of spoiler heavy, I mean, we did think about doing a spoiler-free review. After all, he did pretty much do the same to Mad Max Fury Road. He's going to say that for Quickfire, which means I can give you not one but two reviews, because there are two things that I wanted to talk about, and the first one I can pretty much skim over because it's an addition to something I've already reviewed previously, but at the same time, I do want to go over some points in more detail, so I guess you can call this a
Quickfire review-ish.
Go for it.
Okay, the first thing that I plan to review is RWBY Volume 3.
Oh, joy. RWBY.
Yeah.
Just for Montiom's sake, I hesitate to despair too much.
Yeah. This is the third season of the webs animation created by Rooster Teeth and Montiom, who sadly passed away, but apparently he had left enough story plans for the series to continue with his blessing. I've already reviewed it as the season finale for 2013, but for those of you who missed it and don't feel like going back, the premise is quickly, it follows a young girl named RWBY who has joined Beacon, a school for hunters and huntresses, basically people who are protecting the world from monsters named Grimm with awesome weapons, and she forms a team with other characters named Blake, Weiss and Yang, which ends up forming the name RWBY. The problem with the show is it looks and sounds cool, but the more you think about it, the less it makes sense, especially its two major flaws being that the story keeps being sabotaged by the rule of cool as the need for comedy, in the sense that they will basically hijack the story and either kill all the tension or make characters look bad.
Yeah. I mean, you can tell there's some anime influence going on, because a lot of RWBY is just fueled purely by the rule of cool, like you said.
Yeah. And honestly, Season 3 started off as more of the same. Even with the fighting tournaments, Rule of Cool and the jokes were still dominating the story and making it absolutely ridiculous. So, at first, I wasn't planning to review it. However, this all changed in the last 3 or so episodes, when, after years of the villains continuously foreshadowing, threatening, but not actually doing anything, they finally unleashed their plan, and for once, the series holds tension. I had actual investment in the conflict because our heroes were in genuine danger, and I was on the edge of my seat seeing if they were going to make it out alive. Admittedly, the resolution is kind of hackneyed and comes out of nowhere, but even with that, not everyone gets off scot-free. The team is broken up, and there are actual consequences. People are still emotionally and, in some cases, physically scarred by what happened. So, in one sense, the writing has gone up. But I'm still a little bit apprehensive because I fear the series has started down a dark path, and this is where the spoilers come in, folks. Characters die. Okay, not that many die, the heroes still pull out, but the show seems to be reveling a little too much in their misery and pain, is what I have to say. Like, Yang doesn't die, but her arm gets cut off and she ends up in a really depressing funk, which kind of saps the mood out of pretty much everyone around her, so...
Wow, I guess this is what happens whenever you turn over Montiom's penchant silliness to the apparently really grim bastards at Rooster Teeth. By the way, I say that fondly. I've loved Rooster Teeth since 2007.
Yeah, at least he gets to live. There are loads of other characters who have died. Some are a bit more climatically than others, like Torchwick. Like I said, he was one of the first villains that showed up, and I did actually like his character, but his last few moments, he's fighting RWBY, and then he goes into a monologue about how nothing can stop what's happening now, and I am going to do what I've always done. I'm going to lie, I'm going to cheat, I'm going to steal, and most importantly, I'm going to survive! And then a Grim eats him.
That is so anticlimactic, it's perfect.
Pretty much, yeah.
Holy I actually kind of like that.
Yeah. That death kind of worked for his character, especially with that speech. The one I'm the most concerned about is Pyrrha. Now, Pyrrha is a character who's always been kind of the ensemble dark horse in that it's implied she's one of the most powerful and gifted students, but she was part of the supporting cast. And her death, well, it honestly felt pointless. For some reason, she gets it into her head that even though our headmaster specifically told me I'm just getting in the way, and the villain has returned, making it very clear that he's probably died, or at the very least lost a match, I think I can take her.
Why would you do that?
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, it would be one thing if she was sacrificing her life to make sure some innocent people were saved, or to make sure her friends got away, but no, she just sees the villain climbing the tower and decides she has to fight. I don't get why, but yeah, so they have this big fight, and it's kind of the finale to this whole thing, but she loses badly, and her death is, aside from seeming pointless, it's also incredibly cruel, because it would be one thing if the villain just stabbed her and then let her body slump, but no. What the villainess does, she creates a bow and arrow, pierces her through the chest, and we get a few uncomfortable seconds of people going, and then the villain walks up to her, places a hand on her head, uses her firepower to make Pyrrha's body glow orange before she dissolves into a literal cloud of embers.
Have we delved into Game of Thrones? Jesus!
Yeah, it honestly feels like that, because here's the thing, we often reference the Red Wedding, but the thing you gotta remember about that event is, it's not just the fact that characters died, it's the fact that it was the villains basically destroying the status quo and smashing several characters you grow to like, really.
And honestly, I'm not sure if the Red Wedding is a very good thing to aspire to.
Yeah, that's the thing. What we have right now is good. I'm just hoping this doesn't set a precedent, and I'm hoping that from this fall we can actually get the heroes rising up at this point, because they've been laying it on way too thick. Not just with the character deaths, but with the music as well. In fact, the finale episode is half an hour long. 10 minutes of that is credits, and half of the credits have this big rock metal song, which is basically just hammering the points home with all the subtlety of a nuclear explosion. I'm coming up all the lyrics offhand, but it kind of starts off, does it feel good knowing you tried, even if it all ended in failure?
Oh, hi, Galen Merrick. Where have you been since the Force Unleashed?
Yeah, it is basically batting it over the head like, this is serious, this is depressing. I'm hoping that we can actually get this turned around and the heroes can actually start having some victories again in later seasons, because if it's gonna continue being dark and depressing, I fear it may go down a really bad path.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm not sure at this point if Game of Thrones is something any series aspires to be like, but then again, Rooster Teeth has kind of been this way for a while. I mean, I remember Red vs. Blue Revelations. I'm still not over Red vs. Blue Revelations.
Took a similar turn, I guess.
God, that series was depressing. No one even died, and yet it managed to torture its characters to no end.
Oh, God.
That's what scares me, because if that was what they were able to do without killing characters...
Yeah, so... That's my... It was meant to be fairly quick review of RWBY.
that was quick by our standards.
Yeah, I guess that's true. So, I guess I'm going to have to tread my thoughts on the next subject I want to review, which is going to be difficult because it is a game that has currently taken, just making a rough estimate here, 120 hours of my life. Xenoblade Chronicles X.
Here we go. I knew this was going to happen eventually, and I'm looking forward to the glowing recommendation.
Yeah, it is going to be a recommendation, I'll be honest. It would be amazing if it wasn't considering I spent that much time on it, but...
Yeah, that's like me playing... Actually, no, I'm not going to say that's like me playing Call of Duty for 160 hours of my life, because I actually used to do that. Because I was a stupid little...
Aww.
But carrying on with your review, Jonin.
Yeah. Before I get started with explaining the premise, I should explain something, because for some reason people make this question. No, you don't have to play Xenoblade Chronicles first in order to understand this game. In fact, I'm going to be honest, this game is almost a completely different animal from Xenoblade Chronicles. 75% of the gameplay is the same, give or take a bit, but basically aside from that, it is a completely different game in terms of tone, story structure, even the combat has some big differences to it, and even the music as well. It's kind of funny, when people were first hearing the music tracks, they were afraid because they thought, oh, it doesn't sound as good as Xenoblade Chronicles. And that, folks, is the reason why I never listen to a video game soundtrack before I actually hear it in context, with the possible exception of boss themes. Because, let's face it, the best way to hear a video game's music is in context, and oh my god, in context, the soundtrack is awesome.
Well, that's good.
It's really strange. It's a massive collection of orchestra, techno, rock, and even rap at some point, and in a variety of languages of English, German.
Well, damn. I hope it's better rap than Sonic Adventure.
It's really weird. You would think a rap song called Black Tar would be absolutely silly, but you'd be surprised how well it works. It plays whenever you're fighting creatures in the overworld, and it's surprisingly energetic given the circumstances.
Huh. I'm curious already as a fan of awesome soundtracks.
Yeah, it's something I definitely recommend. In fact, I know... I swear this is the last time I mentioned this series. I know Death Battle have already used Uncontrollable in the Charizard vs. Greymon fight, but I wouldn't be surprised if they used the song N0EX01, because that's a fight that goes on in major story battles, and holy crap, it's awesome.
I think I've got something to listen to once we're done here.
Indeed. But yeah, getting into the main premise of the game itself. Basically, the game starts with the world being blown up by aliens.
Saints Row the 4th?
Basically,
Except serious, it's Saints Row.
Yeah, Earth was caught in the middle of an intergalactic war, and it was blown up. However, there were several evacuation ships shot off the planet with the idea of, okay, the Earth looks like it's going to be destroyed, maybe we can find a new home elsewhere. Only one made it through, and even that was still chased down by the rest of the aliens, because this particular group of aliens really doesn't like humans, and I'll get more into why in a moment. But long story short, the last remaining humans crash onto this mysterious planet called Mirror, and they have to basically restart all of human civilization with just a handful of people they have. And as part of that, your main character, after being woken up from a stasis pod, which it's a completely made custom character who has conveniently lost all their memory, but
convenient amnesia!
Pretty much, but it's kind of a minor point, especially since your character's amnesia admittedly doesn't play any part of the story at all. It's just a way of introducing the world to you, and this game borrows a lot more elements from Western RPGs and MMOs specifically, in the fact that it is a character you can completely customize yourself with appearance, classes, and very gratifyingly, like I've already told Sven in private, voice actors, in the fact that next to voice there is a list of personality types with the voice actresses next to him, which meant there was a genuine moment when I was sitting there going, do I want my character to be voiced by Tara Platt or Kate Higgins?
I could tell you I would be screwed at the character customization screen alone, because that is the cruelest choice you could ever ask of me.
I know. After that, your character is quickly roped into an organisation named Blaze, which has the main goal of traversing around Mura and trying to establish a civilization, as well as find off the aliens, otherwise known as the Ganglion, which is less of a race, more like a collection of species that all hate humanity.
I'm just imagining in my head this platoon of aliens charging into battle screaming, "This is for XCOM!"
Maybe, we don't know much about Earth, but anyway, basically the point is, on an alien planet, and you have to fight off the invaders whilst re-establishing the civilization, and this is one of the key differences between Xenoblade Chronicles and Xenoblade Chronicles X. Xenoblade Chronicles is like a serial where the story, in traditional JRP style, it keeps building and building and building all towards this big moment. There are arcs, but it's all part of one continuous story. Xenoblade Chronicles X plays out more like a TV season, in the fact that there are 12 story missions in the game, and every time you play one of them, it establishes new elements, shakes up the status quo, but in between that, you'll be exploring the world, performing different quests in the hub. And these quests are the meat of the game story, and they're honestly one of the most entertaining bits, because the quests are categorized into different types. There's the basic, which are randomly generated, and it's the kind of standard you pick from a notice board, gather 5 items, kill 5 enemies, etc. And you can basically do those if you just want to get basic money, experience, and equipment. Then there's what's known as the normal missions, which are the quests that have a story, and these are the types that get a lot more interesting because the stories you can have in them are so varied it's insane. Just to give you an idea, the quest scenarios include a murder mystery, parasitic horror story, defusing a series of bombs laid around by terrorists, trying to help someone get back to the future using their car in a very obvious reference.
Wow. Back to the Future. I wonder what that could be referencing.
Trying to explain the concept of human fashion to an alien, and most unbelievably, trying to find a rare trading card.
I would be astounded, but to be fair, that's quite a challenge.
Indeed, so you basically get the general idea. There are a wide range of the human quests, and I'm gonna be honest, the main plot itself, it's kinda standard and a bit weak. And the characters themselves, they're likable, but they never move beyond their general archetype. You'll find out 1 or 2 bits about them, but otherwise, how you meet them will pretty much be the same. You've got Elmer, who's the standard serious by-the-book commanding officer. You've got Lynn, who is the standard 13-year-old mechanical genius that is somehow also really good at cooking.
Go figure. It's good for someone to have a talent outside their profession.
Yeah, it's basically the kind of standard stuff you've seen before, but in the quest in between stuff, because the story is so varied, there's always something new every time, but the main draw of the story is the concept it creates, and part of the reason why I think they've been able to go all out with these quests is because a lot of thought has clearly gone into the basic premise. Like, you start out with just like the handful of humans in the city, but as the story goes on, you bring more and more different alien species into it, until by the end, New Los Angeles, the name of the homeworld, is a home of multiple species, including humans, Nopon, and many others. It's really fascinating because all the aliens, they seem to be very basic at first, but the more you learn about them, it's satisfying that they're very unique in the same way that they're not just the Star Trek excuse of, oh, we're humans but with makeup on. They have very unique appearances, and they have very different standards and viewpoints, and there are times where the humans and them will often clash because they don't quite understand certain concepts. Oh god, yeah, but that's generally the selling point of this game. It creates this great world that's been thought out to the very last detail. And the story missions then bring up different aspects of philosophy and ethics that do get that in as well. I won't spoil it too much, not the least of which because it's incredibly complicated, but yeah, that is the plus point of the story, and part of the reason why I've spent as long as I did in the game. The quest means you're always finding something new within the game, and the premises just makes the world so entertaining. I'm more than happy to spend time exploring it, basically.
I think I can consider that a solid recommendation, considering I'm a sucker for open world games.
Indeed. The only weakness I would say in the plot, well, two things. First off, admittedly, it's more of a minor nitpick. Really comes down to the fact that the gameplay is based around humanoid-based characters for the class systems, but I would have liked some more party members to have actually been aliens. Like, we get two, but they can't follow the Star Trek policy of, oh, this is an alien with pointy ears, and this guy's blue. It's kind of sad that we don't get to see another Nopon fighter, or just give me a Rothian. Come on, I mean, that's one minor nitpick. The other is that, I know I say it a lot, but I'm going to say it again, the villains are weak.
Why is it always the villains?
Well, I'm probably going to have to take a video to explain that, but for me, the villains is always just because they represent the biggest obstacle, and in this case, the Galleon themselves are intimidating in concept, and the fact that they are an organized militia, basically, and you're always nervous when you creep into an enemy base because of all the tense music and advanced robots that can kill you if they happen to notice you. But the main villain himself, it's kind of funny. Literally hours before this, I was trying to play through the final boss battle where I fought this guy and I can't remember his name because...
Wow! Wow, that's sad!
Yeah, I think it's something like Grandmaster Ludwig. Luxar, but close enough. He has an interesting design, and the fact that it looks satisfyingly alien, but that's as far as my compliments for him end. Admittedly, this comes down to the fact that there's only like 12 story missions that are spaced between like 100 or so hours of gameplay, but even so, his appearance has so little impact. He spends most of his time in the cathedral going, "Oh, great one, give me the guidance of how to deal with these humans." What now? What do you mean I have to work? Can't you see I'm praying to this giant mech?
Wow. Very threatening.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I kept wanting for this guy to deliver some big plot twist that would actually make me take him seriously. And it's funny, Xenoblade Chronicles, the original, has quite possibly some of the best villains I've ever seen, and the only reason I haven't talked about them more is because of spoilers. But this guy, he is a total joke. Like, the point I realized that he was always going to be a joke was one point where one of his generals decides to go on their own personal mission, and he just lets out an exasperated, "Why does everyone in this organization think they can come and go as they please?" And I'm just standing there thinking, you know, I think I know why. It's because he commands no form of respect. You just spend there ranting and raving about how these humans are awful savages. Give me guidance, Great One, and not actually doing a goddamn thing.
Wow. I know that in the past I've complained about villains doing too much, but there's a fine line.
Indeed. What was kind of sad as well is that, again, when he turns up to be the final boss, he tries to explain his motive, but it basically is a gibberish from a religious fanatic. It's basically, during the final boss, the moment I was waiting for, like, okay, please reveal your purpose. Let me know why you've dedicated your entire life chasing all of humanity around. He goes, "Ah, yes, it's prophesied that the humans are the successor to Samara, and the prophecy says that the Galleon will be destroyed by them, or have to bow down to them, or possibly that the humans will save us. I don't know, I wasn't really paying that much attention. Point is, die!"
Sorry, I got distracted by this cake.
It's really sad that, to be honest, in the final battle, you could replace all of his dialogue with and it would make just as much sense and impact.
So they could have gone ahead and cast your dog in the main villain's role, and nothing would have been changed.
Pretty much, yes. Oh, jeez. It's kind of funny, my dog doesn't actually make that much noise, and yet even then it would still have more of an impact than anything.
Have at you, Fido. We're paying you in dog treats.
So, disappointing villains aside, and now that I think about it, the gag that they keep using of Lin somehow trying to eat a no-pawn named Tatsu, even though he's a sentient creature, that was a kind of joke that died and should have stayed dead. But anyway. But yeah, otherwise, like I said, I'm trying to keep this brief, so yeah. General plot is kind of, but the world itself is really fascinating and want to explore and can create many, many stories. But onto the gameplay. The gameplay is actually kind of interesting. Like I said before, Xenoblade Chronicles is inspired a lot more by Western RPGs than JRPGs, and because of that, it has a battle system I would say is more akin to a BioWare game, in the fact that your character has a selection of skills, or arts as they're referred to, and you have to time when you use them, and when you use that skill there's a brief cooldown period, and in the meantime your character just auto-attacks the enemy whilst you move around them.
You know, I'm down for anything that reminds a person of BioWare.
I will stress one thing to you, which is a slight criticism of the gameplay, but for God's sake, read the manual. I know it's annoying that they've stuck it in the Wii U menu, but seriously, I cannot stress this enough, read the manual. There is a lot they don't explain, and you have to pay attention to these little factors, because it's the one thing that can save you from what can turn a battle from a pretty even slog to a one-sided KO.
Wow. You know, I remember a day whenever all you needed to know about a game was in the instruction manual. Those days were the days of DOS.
Yeah, pretty much. And now you pretty much have to read the manual, because there is a lot of detail to the combat system. Especially, I actually found it really hard in the opening chapters, because I was wondering, okay, how the hell do you heal in this game? Because I can learn healing arts, but they seem to have very little effect on anything. The reason is there is this big mechanic, which I'll explain now, because it's one of the systems that makes the combat a lot of fun, but it's something that, again, they don't explain and can really mess you up if you're not paying attention. It's a mechanic known as Soul Voice. Basically, the best way I can describe it, you'll be moving around the field with 3 other party members. At a particular point, a character will suddenly shout out, "Okay, I've injured him, go ahead and use melee attacks." And one of your melee arts will start glowing. If you hit it, your character will then say a badass line to go along with the attack, and everyone in the party regains health. So, basically, it's a system which you no longer need a dedicated healer. Every character can gain health as long as you pay attention to what's going on. And it creates this interesting balance, because you have to actually pay attention to what the other characters are saying, because they will be continuously shouting out orders, which creates the thing of, okay, do I want to use this art now, or do I wait for the character to order to get my health back up? So, it sounds weird at first, but it's a really enthralling system once you get the hang of it, especially since it can really pull your ass out of the fire. And in fact, there's nothing more satisfying than when you're down into the red and the character goes, "We have to turn this around, use melee attacks." You pull out your strongest melee move, and you'll back up to a decent health.
Wow. You know, that would be awesome, but in the words of Yahtzee, a tutorial wouldn't go amiss.
Indeed, yes. I mean, I know people say that Nintendo has a bad tendency of holding people's hands, but it is nice to have some middle ground here.
Yeah, just a little bit of instruction, if nothing else.
Yeah. But, like I said, Ed, once you do get to grips with it, the combat system is very enthralling, very strategic, and a lot of fun. Especially in the later parts of the game, when you get the giant robots known as Skells.
You know, I heard something about those, and how disappointingly late they came into the game.
I wouldn't say they came disappointingly late. They're more around mid-range, but I can kind of see why they would hold it back, because here's the thing. The Skells, well, not only is it fun to travel around in a giant robot, but here's the thing. The Skells are a good way of balancing the combat when it gets difficult, because the best way I can describe it is that it's like gaining an additional 10 or 20 levels once you step inside, because the scales obviously have more stats than humans, so when you're facing giant enemies, they're now more on equal ground. When you're facing smaller enemies, even if they're like 15 levels higher than you can crush them in a couple of moves, and that is more often than not the best way to grind for experience and often turn very difficult battles around. In fact, there was one moment, I will always remember, there was one especially difficult quest where I had to get this key card off an assassin. Now, they were only 5 levels higher than me, but they still had very specialized skills and was managing to kick my ass. And after about 2 or 3 times, I was trying to run away, going, oh god, this enemy's ridiculously hard, I've got to run away. What, it's chasing me? Oh, Jesus. Come on, how long is it going to keep chasing me up? I mean, I'm almost outside of the building. Yes, that's it. Keep following me, keep following me, keep following me outside so I can get into my giant robot! Smash, 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 smash!
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a moment that'll stick with me forever. I'm gonna...
Understandably.
So yeah, combat is really entertaining. So is exploring the overworld as well, because you've obviously got the Ghanaian aliens, but you also have the creatures of Planet Mirror itself. And on the one hand, you could say that they're kind of standard monsters you see in most games, but the thing that makes them a lot more interesting is that they do look like animals that could exist in real life. In fact, it's pre-programmed so that when they're not fighting you, they aren't just standing in the middle of the field. They're chasing each other, galloping over the plains, and drinking out of a lake. In fact, a lot of the larger monsters do this, which it's kind of you're like walking around a lake, you see this and you go, oh wow, that is such a beautiful, majestic creature drinking water. I'm going to keep a distance though, because it is the size of a dinosaur and it's level 90. In fact, I want to say that it's funny, a lot of people talk about how Undertale was revolutionary, the fact that it made the monsters innocent creatures that you want to spare. I think, to be perfectly honest, this game strikes the much better balance between the two, because Undertale, don't get me wrong, I really like it and I kind of like what it has to say, but it's a thing that only works in that specific situation. This game strikes a good balance where they actually say early on in the game, okay, this is technically their home world, so if we can, we'd rather not go on a rampage and kill them all. But at the same time, we have got to survive in this world, and there are predators, so if they do get too close, we do need to get rid of them. So it's drawing a fine line between defending yourself and picking a fight, basically.
Yeah, that seems a little, well, for one, a little less one-sided. And for two, a little more believable.
Yeah, that's basically the best thing I can describe it. It's a very believable world, and it is a lot of fun to explore to get into. There are some gripes, however. Again, not enough for me to completely destroy my enjoyment of the game, but there are things I should mention. The difficulty, they have done some steps to balance it from the original Xenoblade. Like, when you get a quest to find a particular enemy, it will actually place markers on the map that show where the enemy is more likely to hang out. And they also give you the item known as the follow ball, which basically, if you're on the ground and you're at the marker, but it doesn't seem to be anywhere in sight, you can use the follow ball to show, okay, this is how you're supposed to get to it from ground level, if that makes any sense.
Huh. Well, that's handy.
Yeah, so they balanced it like that. And also, if you're in a story mission and a boss is kicking your ass, after you lose to it about 3 to 5 times, a message will pop up saying, do you want to lower the difficulty this one time? If you hit yes, it will take away 5 levels, and I can't confirm this, but I think it stops them using 1 or 2 of their worst attacks. So it's a good way of balancing the difficulty without making it insulting.
That's a good way of putting it.
Unfortunately, there are still elements that can improve. Like, I've already mentioned the fact that they don't explain anything, but there are times when, okay, one of the things you can do is pick up item drops. These are small blue crystals that will randomly give you an item. The game has a bad tendency of going, okay, you need to get 3 wood drop-ins in Primordia. Okay. Could you narrow it down a bit, though? Because Primordia is an entire continent. And there's a wide range from my search to cover. You couldn't narrow it down a little bit. Nope. You couldn't possibly give me a quest marker? Nope. Right, okay. Where's my iPad? I will admit, this game would have probably taken me a lot longer if I hadn't been consulting the wiki at every single time one of these item drop things showed up.
Well, at least you had something to fall back on.
Yeah, but part of me feels I really shouldn't have. But the other thing is, there is still a lot of grinding that I don't think it's so much the difficulty of the grinding, it's the fact that the rewards you get for killing each enemy, completing quests, and discovering places, etc., are ridiculously pitiful. Like, there was one point when I was in a story mission going, okay, I spent 2 hours trying to get through this place. I have gone through at least 20 different mooks. I have killed not one, not two, but 3 giant robots, one of which was a Titan, and we came with the music and everything, all of which were either the same level as me or a couple of levels higher. So, I wonder how close I am to level now. I'm only a third of the way? Are you kidding me?
Wow! That sounds like a bit of a grind.
Yeah, that's the problem. I mean, gets to that kind of irritating point. Like, I mentioned I reached the final boss. I wanted to end this game today so that I could talk about maybe the ending, whether it was satisfying or dissatisfied. I couldn't, because as it turns out, even though the boss was, in fact, under my level, he has minions and they're all crushing me from all sides, and it means I'm going to have to go back and grind. And of course, that's not a simple task, since it takes a long time for you to build up any levels, so yeah, that's an aspect I feel could have been reduced a bit.
Or at least streamlined, because that's unreasonable.
Yeah, that's basically it. I mean, like in Pokemon, you still have to grind occasionally, but you can get at least like 2 or 3 levels within about the span of an hour. Xenoblade, you'd be lucky if you got to the end of like a 2-hour session and managed to reach your levels.
Wow. That's a little crazy.
Yeah, and this is assuming that you're going for enemies that are stronger than you as opposed to enemies weaker than you, in which case, hope you left the week open, but those are all small gripes, and the other reason they seem annoyed is because they just kind of eat at you over the course of a game, but it still doesn't detract from the fact that Xenoblade Chronicles is an amazing game, and if you're a big fan of RPGs and you don't mind having to get past that barrier of learning the full mechanics of the combat system, I cannot recommend it enough.
Well, I'll take that as, well, another reason to invest in a Wii U. One of many.
I know there aren't that many games on the Wii U, but for what little we have, there are some awesome stuff on there, this game included.
One day, win money.
Indeed. And now, after 2 reviews, I think we can now finally move on to
Quickfire Reviews!
This is the section where we review everything else we read, watched or played, but within a maximum time limit of 60 seconds. And Sven, please take over and stop me talking.
Alright, I think I can do that.
Fire Emblem Fates, or as I like to call it without spoilers, Fire Emblem Reinforcements, hooray for reinforcements. I'm not going to go into much more detail than that because saying just about anything about the story would spoil it horribly, but just know these 2 things. 1, it's good. 2, we'll be back.
Awesome. Just speaking vaguely on the gameplay, is that yay reinforcements for us or reinforcements for them?
Let's just say that there was cursing involved last night on a sea-based level.
Well, I guess that's the traditional Fire Emblem experience.
Yeah, full of you, player. By the way, I advise bringing tissues, both for the tears of sadness you'll experience playing the story campaign, and for the tears of rage you'll be excreting playing the actual chapters. This game falls back on the traditional Fire Emblem 6 standard of being an absolute asshole.
I'm starting to think maybe Phoenix Mode isn't such a bad idea after all.
I've thought that several times. Especially once I realized that enemies can now pair up.
Oh God.
That's about as fun as it sounds, by the way.
Yeah, well, that'll be an interesting thing to keep in mind. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that game when it eventually comes out over here.
Yeah, one day in the far-flung future.
Sob.
By-
Do you have anything?
By that time, we may have flying cars. But, you were saying?
I was saying, do you have anything else you want to review?
No, because my other addiction this month I've already reviewed.
Fair enough. In that case, I'll have one quick review to end things. The Forbidden Kingdom, a kung fu film that is basically the last action hero with kung fu films. The positive points of it include Jackie Chan and Jet Li in the same movie and having a really awesome fight and playing awesome characters. The downsides include a female character who is the epitome of token revenge-based heroes and dies in a really stupid way, and a young boy who is pretty much the definition of a designated hero in that he does fulfill a prophecy, but only on a technicality. So yeah, it's more a movie that's fun to laugh at rather than a movie that's fun to watch. But yeah, if you're interested in kung fu movies, give it a look at least.
Well, at least there's Jackie Chan.
I believe this show has gone on long enough, so I think it's now time to wrap up the show. So until next time, I've been the Jonin Monkey.
And I've been Sven the Crusader. I'm too tired to think of an outro.
And I've spoken long enough, let's end it.
That was Monkey Broadcast, a monthly review and discussion show hosted by the Jonin Monkey and Sven the Crusader. If you feel you've been the subject of slander or that your copyright was misused, send an email to thejoninmonkey@yahoo.co.uk. For more news and media reviews, follow me on Twitter @thejoninmonkey and go to thejoninmonkey.popping.com for previous podcasts and MP3 downloads. All music used belongs to the original owners. Until next month, have fun, kids!